Hey, so I wanted to come on here and do kind of an unedited raw video with discussing whether you should own a home or not for people who are struggling to decide whether home ownership is the right move versus renting, or if right now in 2026 is a good time to buy a home or not to buy a home. There's a lot of decision making initially when you're just kicking it around in your head. And you have to be careful about who you're listening to, because a lot of people like myself stand to make a profit if you do buy a home. So it's important to get all aspects of why you should or should not buy a home. But ultimately, that decision is going to be up to you. I just wanted to throw out some pros as well as cons to think about before pulling that lever. So let's get into one of the most important things before you should decide to buy a home. And that is, how stable is your career? Are you in a job that you feel secure, that you have been there a while, you know what you're getting paid, and you're comfortable with your bills versus your income? A lot of times when I look at somebody's mortgage, they may qualify on paper, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should jump right into it. So when I run a mortgage application for somebody, I'm looking purely at their debt that's on paper versus their mortgage. And what I can't see is whether you like to travel a lot or other expenses that are off the books that you like to do that you may not want to give up. So just because your debt to income on paper shows that you would be a good buyer, it doesn't necessarily mean that you would be. So think about all those things: how much you travel, how much money goes out the door for other hobbies and expenses, not just what's on a mortgage application. Second, have you decided that you're going to be there for a while? So if you are thinking that you're potentially going to move within a year, maybe out of state, or you don't want to be in that specific area, I would highly recommend maybe not buying at that point. Home ownership is not meant for a immediate return on investment. So you may buy something this year and need to get out next year, and the home value might not have gone up enough to be able to make you walk away with a profit or even breaking even. So if you're on a short-term plan, I always would suggest you second guessing buying a home. You want to make sure that you're going to be there for a significant amount of time, that you have roots planted, things like that. Also, one of the big mistakes I see people make is not researching the neighborhood enough. So before you're going to make a huge commitment like buying a home, you really should be driving through neighborhoods that you're considering. So, on your time off of work and things like that, drive down the street, see how the neighbors live. Are there cars that are torn apart? Does it look like a high crime area? Is it a neighborhood that you're going to enjoy living in? Because the last thing you want to do is find a pretty house on Zillow. You commit to it because you drove by it one time, you went in the house, and then you find out your neighbors are horrendous, or the neighborhood in general is not a neighborhood you wanted to be in. That's the last thing you want to do. So a lot of upfront research is needed before you make a huge commitment like that. Also, what you should be considering is the time and period you're thinking about buying a good time. I can tell you from my perspective, the best time to buy is when nobody else is buying. And the reason for that is when demand goes up, prices go up. And some of the worst times to buy was during that COVID period where there was multiple offers, bidding wars on everything. People were really getting in over their heads with bidding homes up and offering way too much. And unfortunately now, when those people want to sell, they are upside down in equity. So I know the temptation is to purchase a home when everybody's excited and everybody's out there buying, but I would caution you against that. It's no different than buying a car. If you saw a dealership flooded with hundreds of people on that lot wanting to buy, I would say that obviously it's not a good time to buy, or specifically from that dealership, because now you have a ton of competition. And what happens? Of course, the prices get jacked up. So, one of 2026 offerings are that we do have higher rates, which is unfortunate. However, the rates can be bought down by the seller at their expense, and you're competing a lot less with other buyers, which means you're going to get a better deal. Now, there's still some neighborhoods that are getting multiple offers and having bid wars, but those are definitely not as common as they were during that COVID period. So 2026, if you decide to buy a home, is definitely a good time. You're not in that stress of always getting outbidded on the home, which can be just a miserable experience if you've ever had that happen before. I guess one of the big takeaways is you're going to have a lot of people in your ear. You're going to have a lot of people saying that you should own a home by a certain age. That's a sign of being responsible, things like that. I certainly think home ownership is better than renting, but that does not mean that you're at a point in your life right now where that translates to you. So I would really try to figure out how solid you are in your life right now, how secure your job, relationships, and everything going on in your life is right now. And you want to have that as dialed in as possible. I know all of us are a hot mess at many times, but you don't want to have a lot of other chaos in your life when you're deciding to buy a home. So if you do have that, you have job uncertainty, relationship uncertainty, things like that, that might not be a good time to be making such a huge decision. Now, if those things are going great and you feel like you found the neighborhood, your roots are planted, your job's secure, things like that, 2026 could be a huge opportunity for you. There's so many programs out there, even if you don't have a down payment. I know in Colorado and Texas, they have down payment assistance programs that get you into a home for about $1,000 down. Again, the market is right now favoring the buyer. So sellers are offering seller concessions. What that means is they'll pay your closing costs, even buy your rate down, things like that. So 2026 has some huge opportunities for buyers. But again, don't force it. If you are unsure, you are almost better off continuing to rent until you know that you are ready for all the responsibility of home ownership, including repairs, and all the responsibility that comes with that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm a licensed real estate agent and mortgage broker, so I see it from both ends, and I'm happy to talk.